The studio lights of real time with Bill Maher poured down like molten gold, heating the air, sharpening the atmosphere, and intensifying every expression on the set. Blake Shelton walked in with his usual easy swagger, cowboy charm on full display, a grin ready for the audience, and that signature mix of humor and honesty that made people feel like they'd known him their whole lives. But beneath that relaxed confidence, Blake felt something else, an odd, prickling tension humming through the room. Bill Maher's eyes had that familiar glint, the one that told every viewer he was in the mood to test someone's limits. Blake adjusted his jacket and gave a polite nod toward Maher as he settled into the chair. "Excited to be here," he said lightly. The crowd applauded. Maher smiled, but it wasn't the warm kind. It was calculated, the type he wore right before diving into a verbal trap. "Oh, I'm sure you are," Maher replied. "We've got a fun show planned tonight. And hey, Blake Shelton in the hot seat, can't complain about that." The audience laughed, but Blake caught the undertone. Hot seat. Interesting choice of words. The conversation started simply enough: music, touring, the usual celebrity talk show banter. Blake relaxed a little, leaning back, cracking jokes that landed easily. Everything felt fine, smooth, harmless. Then Maher shifted forward. "So, Blake," he began casually, which meant danger was seconds away, "you've mentioned in a few interviews that you prefer not to wade into politics. Yet, curiously, you've tweeted and spoken out about some pretty major national issues lately. Doesn't that strike you as a little contradictory?" The audience chuckled. Blake did not. He cleared his throat, keeping his tone even. "Well, Bill, just because I'm not running for office doesn't mean I lose my right to say what I think. I'm just speaking my mind like anyone else." Maher nodded slowly, theatrically. Sure, but you're not just anyone else. You're a guy with millions of followers. When you speak, people listen. So doesn't that give your words a bit more weight?" Blake felt his jaw tighten. "I'm not sitting here pretending to be America's moral compass. I sing songs, make folks laugh, try to be myself. That's all." Maher smirked. "Well, that's admirable, but I have to ask, do you think tweeting after a couple of beers on the porch is the best way to guide your fanbase?" The crowd roared with laughter. Blake sat frozen. The smile on his face faltered. Maher had struck exactly where he wanted. "Bill," Blake said slowly, "you're making it sound like I'm some drunk redneck typing nonsense into my phone." Maher shrugged innocently. "I didn't say that." "You did." Blake leaned forward, heat rising behind his eyes. "Let me make something real clear. I don't let anybody put words in my mouth, and I damn sure don't let anyone twist my intentions." Maher raised an eyebrow, amused. "Relax, Blake, we're just talking. Or are you worried I've hit a nerve?" The comment slithered under Blake's skin. "I came on your show to talk about my music, my new record, my life, not to be ambushed into some political debate you already had scripted." That struck the room silent for a moment, until Maher said in that cool, condescending tone, "This is real time, Blake. We talk about real things. If you weren't ready, maybe you should have stayed backstage." The studio audience oohed, like a wave crashing. Maher sat back, satisfied. Blake felt the chair suddenly too small, the lights too bright, the entire moment closing in on him. "You know what, Bill?" he said, voice low but shaking with anger. "I'm not putting up with this crap." He slammed his hand on the armrest, the sound echoing across the stage. Several people in the front row jerked back in surprise. A producer stepped forward, but Blake was already unclipping his mic, breathing hard. The audience gasped. Maher, calm as ever, watched like he'd been expecting this exact explosion. "Looks like Blake Shelton is walking out," he said, half amused. "Hey, not everyone can handle a real conversation. That's real rich coming from you," Blake snapped, standing up. "You poke people until they break and then act surprised when they do." He stormed across the stage, boots striking the floor with sharp, angry thuds. Someone tried to guide him toward a quieter exit, but Blake brushed the hand away. The audience whispered, the tension palpable. Seconds later, a stage manager announced quietly, "Blake Shelton has been removed from the show." But everyone knew it wasn't a graceful exit. It was a breakdown in real time. Maher exhaled dramatically, shrugged at the camera, and pretended to move on, but the energy in the room didn't recover. Something had cracked open, and everyone felt it. Backstage, the moment Blake Shelton crashed through the double doors, the entire green room seemed to freeze. His boots hit the floor like thunder, his shoulders tense, jaw locked, eyes still burning with the kind of anger that didn't cool quickly. His bandmates, who'd been lounging, joking, and sipping sodas just minutes earlier, sat up straight as if they'd been caught doing something wrong. "Blake, what the hell happened out there?" one of them whispered, though the answer was already written all over his face. Blake twisted open a water bottle so hard it nearly snapped in his grip. "Maher happened," he growled before taking a long drink. "He baited me, poked me, twisted every damn thing I said. I came here to have a conversation, not get blindsided." His bandmates exchanged uncertain looks. They were used to Blake's temper. He could flare up, blow off steam, and be laughing again within minutes. But this was different. This was deeper, sharper. He paced like a storm searching for somewhere to strike. A production assistant followed him into the room, nerves evident in her forced smile. "Mr. Shelton, the producers want to know if you're willing to come back for the closing segment." "Bill says." Blake spun around. Bill says what?" he snapped. She flinched. "He says he'd be happy to continue the conversation, if you calm down." Blake laughed. A cold, humorless sound. "Yeah, I bet he would. He wants a viral moment." He got one. The assistant backed out of the room with a quick nod, clearly relieved to escape. Blake's publicist entered moments later, tablet in hand, scanning updates coming in by the second. Her expression said everything. "Blake, we have a situation," she said, shutting the door behind her. "I know," he muttered. "I walked out. Big deal. It's trending." She turned the tablet toward him. "Every clip, every angle, every second of the exchange is already circulating. Hashtag Team Blake and hashtag Team Maher are both blowing up. People are picking sides." Blake squinted at the screen. "Of course they are." His publicist crossed her arms. "This could get messy. You need to think about how you want to handle it." "I handled it just fine," Blake shot back. Bill pushed, and I pushed back. "But walking out was better than punching him," Blake said sharply. Silence engulfed the room. Even he knew he'd said too much. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling hard, the frustration draining into something heavier, regret. Embarrassment, maybe a mix. Meanwhile, out on the stage, Maher was milking the moment with his usual smirk. "Well, folks," he said to the audience, "that was interesting." Blake Shelton apparently didn't like being asked to think tonight. Laughter rippled through the room. "It's okay. Not everyone does." Backstage, Blake heard the muffled sound of the audience reacting and felt he'd rush up his neck again. "That son of..." His publicist held up a hand. "Blake, don't. You'll just make this worse." "Worse." Blake shook his head. "He's making jokes about me while I'm still in the building. And if you march back out there," she countered, "he'll turn it into round 2. And you'll lose again. That's what he does. That's what he's good at." Blake sank into a chair, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. For the first time since he stormed off stage, he went quiet. His bandmates gave him space. He appreciated that more than he let on. A few minutes later, security escorted the group out through a side exit to avoid reporters flooding the main hall. But the outside world was ready. As Blake stepped into the cool night air, flashes exploded in his face like lightning. "Blake, do you regret walking out? Did Maher kick you off? Do you think you overreacted? Are you planning a response?" Blake held up a hand. "Let me say this," he began, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. "I don't regret standing up for myself. Bill's a smart guy, but he pokes people for a living. Tonight, he poked the wrong one. That's all." His words shot across the internet within minutes. Fans rallied behind him, calling Maher arrogant, calling the interview unfair, praising Blake for refusing to be disrespected. Critics fired back, claiming Blake was thin-skinned, unprepared, unwilling to handle tough questions. Analysts dissected every facial twitch, every breath, every syllable like it was a political event. By the next morning, hundreds of opinion articles had appeared online. Clips of the moment racked up millions of views. Even celebrities chimed in, some defending Blake, others backing Maher. It became the kind of cultural firestorm talk shows dream of: emotion, conflict, and two big personalities colliding like warm fronts and cold fronts in a perfect storm. Blake woke up on his tour bus hours later with sunlight cutting through the blinds and a dull headache thudding behind his eyes. He checked his phone, texts from friends, colleagues, even strangers. Half supportive, half curious, some downright mocking. He tossed the phone aside and stared out the window as the bus rolled down the highway. He wasn't proud of how it ended, but he wasn't ashamed either. It happened, it blew up, and it would calm down.